Good afternoon. My name is Hellen Onkwani. I'm a principal magistrate. I work at Milimani Law Courts. I deal with these cases on a day-to-day basis. And my presentation today is going to be very short. I'm going to do a definition which has already been done and the emerging trends in Kenya. I'll be looking specifically at cross-border FGM, that is female genital mutilation, use of technology in human trafficking, abuse of power by law enforcement agencies, and statistics from the courts, and the laws in place relating to emerging trends, and they are already been covered here today by Christine. So when I'm looking at the definition of trafficking in persons, I want to concentrate on the issue of fraud or deception, of abuse of power, or a person of vulnerability, or giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control of another person for the purpose of exploitation. So I'm looking at the emerging trends in Kenya and cross-border FGM. Female genital mutilation is rampant in Kenya, and it's ongoing. So it is an irreparable and irreversible abuse that poses a serious threat to the health of women and girls, including their psychological, sexual, and reproductive health, which can increase their vulnerability to HIV and adverse maternal child health outcomes, including death. So young girls who are considered as vulnerable are the most affected in female genital mutilation. And according to the findings from the report commissioned by UNICEF in collaboration with the Kenya Anti-FGM Board, 70% of the respondents of the survey from Uganda and 60% from Ethiopia traveled to Kenya to undergo female genital mutilation. And this amounts to abuse of power by the parents, administration authorities, police, immigration officers, and village elders for monetary gains or for other gains. So the recent years have seen a surge of girls taken across the border in Africa to be subjected to female genital mutilation, underpinning the importance for countries to close the existing legal loopholes that does not criminalize cross-border female genital mutilation. So Kenya has been uniquely successful at holding actors and facilitators of female genital mutilation accountable for their crimes. Many arrests have been done for the perpetrators after the President of the Republic of Kenya made a commitment to ending female genital mutilation by the year 2022, not 2021. My apologies for that. So the factors that have contributed to cross-border FGM include shared traditions, fear of arrest, and lack of proximity to circumcisers, and quality and affordability of female genital mutilation services, income sources of circumcisers, and absence of strong regional monitoring systems. So after the circumcision, the girls are married off at a young age, and I consider that to be forced marriage. Because if someone is married off at below the age of 18, then they're being forced. They cannot be able to actually make a decision whether they want to be married or not. Then the girls who are circumcised in Kenya end up working as domestic workers, and that is forced labor. If you look at the definition of trafficking, that falls within trafficking. Statistics from the court show that cross-border FGM has a strong leaning towards human trafficking. So cross-border FGM occurs sometimes with the consent of the adult women, who without their knowledge end up being trafficked. And majority of those that we have are the Somali ethnic community. And we had the story from Blessing. She had already graduated, and she was able being trafficked, being a grown-up, being educated, and all that, actually with their consent. And most of the time, it doesn't happen without the women's consent. Sometimes with their consent, without knowing that you're being trafficked. I'm also looking at the role of technology in human trafficking. Online sex trafficking is a global problem and requires cooperation and coordination among governments, technology companies, civil societies, and survivors, and the legal agencies. So trafficking is on the rise due to the use of internet applications. Youths are lured into internet sites and end up being trafficked. And that is something that is actually emerging and becoming more common in Kenya, because we have sites where youths and young children who are in school, they enter into some of the sites and they think it's fancy, it's something nice, and they end up actually being trafficked for various reasons. So at the international level, we need urgent solutions by incorporating the technological corporations and the legal fraternity into problem solving. And this can be achieved by ensuring that the technological corporations' commercial objectives are aligned to protection of the vulnerable women and children. At the national level, governments need to enact national laws and regulations highlighting the responsibility and accountability of all the actors involved in the capping of the human trafficking. And the technology companies need to be part of this initiative. And I think this is an area which we have not looked at. How do we bring them in? As much as we are trying to do it on our own by implementing the laws and dealing with all this, but are we involving them? They are not part of this. And a presentation was made from the US, and I tried to open one of those sites. It has already been closed. But are we in touch with the technological companies? Are they being held responsible? Do we have laws which are actually holding them liable if some of their sites are being used for human trafficking? I'm also going to look at the conflict of interest by the law enforcement agencies. From the trends and from the cases that we are having in our courts, law enforcement agencies are key in capping human trafficking. But you will be so shocked that some of the law enforcement agencies are involved in capping the vice are the police officers, the prosecutors, children officers, immigration officers, and the courts. A case in point is where a prison warder was convicted of human trafficking. The case is pending appeal. This is a police officer. If, for example, like Blessing was telling us, she had to go to the police to seek for help, and she was turned away. And look here, in our situation here, we have the police, of actually a prison warder. This is a law enforcement agent whom you put your trust in. This is the person whom you think you're going to run into to get help. But this is the person actually who is a perpetrator. So the big question, in my opinion, is the need to analyze who are the real perpetrators. We might be thinking the perpetrators are some demons, some people out there. But the perpetrators are the people we live with in our homes, the people who are the law enforcement agencies, and even our brothers and our sisters and our parents, and the people whom we trust. So where there's demand, there will always be supply. So what we need to do is to endeavor to cut the demand for the humans as goods for sale. So abuse of power by the law enforcement agencies is a worrying trend. There's need to relook at our law enforcement agencies. And those are the people we need actually to concentrate in as we go forward. Another issue which have come up, and some of the cases which I'm handling are children homes. They are no longer safe havens. Some children's homes are being used for human trafficking. So the statistics from the Milimani law courts where I work is that we have over 300 cases which have been reported in relation to human trafficking. 30 of these cases relate to human trafficking specifically. 270 cases at Milimani courts are reported as immigration cases. Majority of these cases are ongoing and relate to the offenses of facilitating persons exit out of the country for purposes of trafficking. So trafficking in persons, it's specifically, there's the law that it deals with it, and we also having aiding and facilitating employment of persons out of the country. We have immigration offenses. These are majority of the offenses. And actually, one of the issues that is also emerging, which is not in my presentation, is about the medical field. In medical field, most of the cases are coming in under the penal laws, where people die in mysterious circumstances. When a post-mortem is being conducted, some of their organs are missing. And who is to be held culpable? It's a back and forth. The doctors who treated the hospitals, they will be saying, the body was okay. Then when it goes to the pathologist, then here it's a back and forth. Those are some of the emerging cases that we are having now. And laws in place to deal with the emerging issues. We have the Palermo Protocol. We have the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act. We have the Kenya Information and Communications Act. the Penal Code, the Children's Act, and the Prohibition of Female Genital Mutilation Act. And with that, I say thank you.